Welcome to today's Explainer. We're diving straight into a fascinating, deeply profound concept that weaves its way through literally every human existence. You know that quiet, persistent ache in the background of life? That strange underlying tension we all feel but can't quite put into words? Well, today we're focusing on the perennial struggle. We'll be drawing on Thomas Alethea's insights to unpack exactly why this struggle exists for humanity, and more importantly, how we can actually navigate it.
So think about this. Why does a sense of quiet discontent often linger regardless of our achievements? It's a fascinating paradox, really. People chase goals, they build relationships, they achieve worldly success, and yet, so many report feeling this unnameable tension. Sometimes it's a dull ache, and other times it's just this unbearable emptiness. Our human instinct is to treat this feeling like a bug in the system, right? Like a temporary problem we just need to fix with a new job, a new relationship, or a new distraction. But what if it isn't a problem to be solved at all?
Henry David Thoreau famously hit the nail on the head when he observed the mass of men live lives of quiet desperation. The source material points out something absolutely crucial here. This feeling of quiet desperation, it's not a temporary affliction or some kind of personal failure. It is actually an enduring facet of the human condition. It's the undercurrent running beneath everything humanity does. And once you realize that this isn't just a continuous series of distinct, fixable problems, but rather a universal feature of human existence, it fundamentally changes how you approach life.
So, what is the perennial struggle? It's that deep, lifelong tension within every single person. It's the pull between light and shadow, between desire and fear. It's literally the friction between who an individual is right now and who they desperately want to be. Humanity is constantly navigating this inner conflict. But here's the thing. By recognizing it neutrally, not as a curse, but as a normal path, individuals can actually stop trying to cure their humanity and start learning how to thrive within it.
Now, while this underlying tension is absolutely universal, it wears a lot of different faces in our daily lives. An individual might struggle with love and intimacy, craving deep connection, but being totally terrified of vulnerability. Or perhaps it's control and power, trying to impose order on a completely unpredictable world. Or maybe it's the search for meaning and purpose. Listen, these deep-seated frustrations are not weaknesses. They are natural markers of the human journey. They only become destructive when they go unacknowledged. To cope with all these terrifying uncertainties, humans often build some pretty elaborate defenses. The source material uses a really striking metaphor for this. Imagine an individual inside a fragile, mirrored bubble, floating through a vast, uncertain cosmos. Because the inside is mirrored, that person only sees themselves and their own affairs. It's the ultimate illusion of control. People build these bubbles out of rigid routines, all those shoulds and have-tos, just to hide from the unpredictable reality of the universe. Sure, it keeps them feeling safe for a while, but it also completely isolates them from the boundless wonder outside.
So, popping that bubble requires acknowledging a rather harsh reality: unmanageability. This is the uncompromising truth that life is fundamentally difficult or, frankly, impossible to control. Acknowledging this is essentially step one in navigating the perennial struggle. It takes incredible courage to just admit that life is unmanageable. But when an individual finally lets go of that illusion of control and pops that mirrored bubble, they open the door to genuine spiritual growth and adaptability.
But letting go of control is incredibly difficult, mainly because of how the human mind works. Think of the mind like a lost bus abandoned by its driver, with all the passengers arguing and physically fighting over the steering wheel. As children, our basic human needs get filtered through flawed beliefs just to help us survive. And over time, these become character defects, things like anger, avoidance, or codependency. They're exactly like those panicked passengers fighting for control of the bus. They used to offer protection, but eventually they just drive a person completely off course.
And here is where humanity usually makes its absolute biggest mistake, believing this internal chaos can be fixed just by trying harder. But using sheer willpower to suppress these distorted needs, it's as futile as Sisyphus endlessly pushing a heavy rock up a steep hill, only to watch it roll right back down. Willpower is notoriously short-lived. It's kind of like expecting a leaky bucket to hold water forever. If a person believes that merely understanding their behavior, or worse, punishing themselves, provides the power to change it, well, they're just chaining themselves to a false reality of endless, exhausting effort.
So how does genuine change actually occur? Well, there are really three scenarios. Number one, an individual crashes into reality. They ignore the facts and suffer the consequences, like walking face first into a glass door. Ouch. Number 2, reality crashes into them, usually via an unavoidable illness or sudden loss. Both of these are incredibly painful. But number 3, that's the healthy choice, participating in reality. Instead of resisting life's currents or getting crushed by them, an individual learns to ride them, kind of like an eagle gliding on a thermal or a surfer riding a massive wave.
To actually participate in reality, individuals have to understand the basic anatomy of their problems. And every problem has 3 parts. First, aspirations, what a person wants or expects to happen. Second, perception, how the situation is currently viewed. And third, reality, what actually is. The source material reveals a profoundly important truth here. The painful gap between human aspirations and actual reality is exactly where all suffering resides. To solve a problem, a person often has to adjust their perceptions and expectations so they actually align with what is objectively real.
Now, a massive part of adjusting that perception involves how humanity views time itself. The ancient Greeks actually had 2 totally different concepts for time. Chronos is measurable clock time. It's the ticking clock that drives all our anxiety, our deadlines, and that creeping feeling that time is running out. But Kairos? Kairos is time beyond human control. It's fate, or the moment when the time is simply right. You can't force the rose to bloom on Chronos time. Finding real grounded peace means accepting Kairos, understanding that some transformations only ever happen when the time is truly right.
To systematically map a way out of the struggle, the author synthesizes a fantastic 4-part toolbox. First, it includes the 12 steps, which is a practical, structured path of taking deep personal inventory and finally letting go of control. Second, it involves the hero's journey, that classic mythological narrative of stepping way outside your comfort zone, facing trials, and experiencing a rebirth. And this is all supported by knowledge, which represents practical action, and wisdom, which is your philosophical insight. Together, the whole shebang gives individuals a reliable way to safely venture outside their mirrored bubble.
And simply changing how you label things, a cognitive reframe, completely alters how the brain approaches hardship. When an individual encounters a difficulty, do they see it as an obstacle or as a challenge? Think about it. Obstacles stop progress. They cause discouragement and fear, and they inspire a desperate desire to just quit. But challenges inspire greater effort. They fuel determination and nurture serious personal growth. By consciously reframing the perennial struggle from a rigid obstacle into an inspiring challenge, an individual fundamentally changes how their brain processes the hardship. It's a real game changer.
Part of that reframing is knowing exactly which battles to fight. Problems generally fall into 3 types. Type 1, internal thoughts and behaviors. Type 2, external physical issues. And Type 3, the unsolvable problems, which, let's be honest, almost always involve the behavior of other people. The absolutely crucial takeaway here: an individual has the most influence over Type 1, their own internal state. Trying to control the unmanageable behavior of others is a spectacular waste of energy. That's a burden that can finally, thankfully, be put down.
To really ground these philosophical ideas, let's consider a highly relatable everyday example: the screaming alarm clock. Why does a person hit snooze? Well, because they're tired. Why? Because they stayed up way too late scrolling on a phone. Why? Because they simply didn't want to face tomorrow yet. It's fascinating. A minor, repetitive behavior, like hitting the snooze button, very often masks a much deeper avoidance of reality. Our everyday habits are frequently just micro-expressions of the perennial struggle.
When someone finally decides to face tomorrow and step into the hero's journey to actually do the work, well, it rarely feels good at first. Think of a caterpillar transforming inside a chrysalis. To the caterpillar, this profound structural change likely feels exactly like dying. It is terrifying. It's a total loss of the known self. Yet what feels like death is actually the birth of a beautiful new existence. True transformation absolutely requires enduring the intense, sometimes brutal discomfort of the chrysalis.
This whole journey reflects an incredibly powerful observation from the psychiatrist Viktor Frankl. He said, "The meaning of life is to give life meaning." You see, meaning isn't found by hiding away in a mirrored bubble, or by endlessly pushing that leaky bucket of willpower up a hill. It is found by actively embracing the perennial struggle. By engaging with life's unmanageability, actually participating in reality, and taking full responsibility for their internal state, individuals are ultimately empowered to forge their own authentic purpose. The struggle isn't in the way of a good life. The struggle is the way to a good life.
Which leaves us with one final, provocative question to end today's explainer. As you reflect on this epic, shared human journey, the tension, the unmanageability, the call to adventure, ask yourself, what step are you on? Are you still fighting the steering wheel on the lost bus, or are you finally ready to step out of your comfort zone and participate in reality? The path is mapped out, the choice is yours. Thank you so much for joining us, and keep exploring.